Today we'll continue our discussion on constellations. So we have seen that constellations are imaginary pictures in sky by joining a group of stars, which was perceived by ancient astronomers. So the real purpose of constellation was to identify the position of stars, and ancient farmers used to keep track of the seasons by arrival of different constellations during different time of the year. So these constellations have been associated with some kind of myth. Ancient stories about gods, heroes, and mythological creatures. Greeks and Romans, who have named the constellations in northern hemisphere and few in the southern hemisphere, has associated some kind of myth with the constellation, and these constellations were part of their religion and culture. There will be always a hero on whose reward or tribute the constellations are named after. Whereas the constellations in the southern hemisphere are more modern, which are identified by the European explorers who have sailed the southern seas, and hence no such myth are available or associated with the constellations in the southern hemisphere. So the real purpose of associating myths with the constellation is to help the farmers remember the constellations so that they can keep track of seasons. Now let us see what are the interesting facts about the constellations. As you already know, there are 88 constellations that IAU, International Astronomical Union, has identified, and among them the brightest is the Cross, which contain the asterism Southern Cross. Hope you remember Southern Cross. What is Southern Cross famous for? Yes, it is used as for navigation purpose in the southern hemisphere. And another fact about Cross is that it is also the smallest one. So brightest as well as the smallest is the Cross. And do you know which constellation has greatest number of visible stars? Yes, it is Centaurus. From the name itself, it indicates more than 100 stars are there in the center. And the largest among the constellation is Hydra, which is also called water snake, that extends over 3.15% of the sky, which is again 19 times larger than the smallest constellation, which is Cross. Now let us see how stars are named in a constellation. First, we'll pick up the brightest star in the constellation, and it will be given the Greek alphabets. So the first one in the Greek alphabet is Alpha. So the brightest star will be named as Alpha, followed by the Latin name of the constellation. So let us check one example. Let us choose the brightest star in Ursa Major constellation. So brightest one will be denoted using Alpha, Greek alphabet, and the Latin name is given by Ursa Majoris, which is the name of constellation. And popularly it is called as Dubhe, but as per the convention, it will be called as Alpha Ursae Majoris. Similarly, the brightest star in the constellation Scorpius will be named as Alpha Scorpii, which is popularly again known as Antaeus. Continuing with the same procedure of naming the stars, the second brightest star will be named as Beta, which is the second Greek alphabet, and the constellation name is Ursa Majoris. So it is Beta Ursa Majoris. Now let us watch a video by Hubble Tonight Sky.
The winter night sky, filled with brilliant stars, presents one of the best celestial views. Orion, the great hunter of Greek mythology, dominates the winter sky. This constellation is among the easiest to recognize. It is full of young stars, dying stars, and many nebulae.
So you can identify the Orion by looking at the belt, which is formed by 3 stars. As I mentioned earlier, there will be a myth associated with the constellations in the northern hemisphere. There is a myth associated with Orion also. So it is like this. Goddess of hunting in Greek mythology is Artemis. She fell in love with Orion the hunter, and to stop her from giving up her vows of chastity, her brother Apollo dared her to hit a small target in the distance with her bow and arrow. Not knowing that the target was Orion, who was enjoying a swim, she hit in a single shot, killing her lover. Devastated by his death, she placed Orion the hunter among the stars. So this is one mythology associated with Orion, and many other myths are also associated with Orion, which involves a scorpion also. But the stories differ from one mythographer to another. So in one tale it is like this: Orion boasted of being a great hunter. The earth goddess heard him and sent a scorpion which stung the giant to death. Orion and the scorpion were placed on opposite sides of the sky, so that when the constellation Scorpius rises in the sky, Orion sets below the horizon in the west, fleeing from the scorpion. So they never come together in sky. That is one kind of mythology. Myth associated with Orion.